Well, I mean, what do you think I'm going to say? It's shameful, it's shocking, it's disgusting. £46,000 of your money, taxpayer money, being spent on this. And actually, if you think about it, in the broadest sense, the budget for the NHS is something like, when I last look, 176 billion, and we've added another 36 billion. So you might say £46,000 is not a great deal of money. But my grandmother had a great adage: look after the pennies and the pounds will look after themselves. We've got 6 million people waiting for elective procedures. Nurses are not being paid enough. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough doctors. The waiting lists are spiralling out of control. And let me just ask you one quick question. If you are a member of the LGBT community and you have central crushing chest pain, are you less likely to go to the hospital if there is not a rainbow crossing? Exactly. Answer, no.
Oh, exactly that. I was going to say, the idea that a gay man who's having a heart attack will in any way be feeling refreshed by the fact that as he's being wheeled into intensive care, there's a rainbow flag on the floor. I mean, come on, it's just nuts, isn't it, really?
Well, it is nuts, and I think actually it shows a bigger problem, which is a lack of accountability. At the end of the day, this is our money. We fund the NHS. And the problem is that the NHS is probably the most loved healthcare system in the world. But is it the best managed? And the answer is, quite frankly, no. And and I think the problem is, the minute you start to criticise the NHS, you're held up as a heretic. And I think we really have to be careful where we're spending this money. And I think the problem is, now you've got these self-governing trusts. They can decide where they spend that money. Now, I think that money should go directly into patient care. If you look at the latest figures, 374 managers in the NHS earn more than the Prime Minister. That cannot be right.
All of this, actually, what it's achieving, we mentioned what it's not achieving, but do you think what it is achieving is actually being counterproductive, pushing people off the cause, pushing people off these equality and diversity causes? Because lots of our viewers and listeners have been in touch saying, stop shoving this down my throat. I'm not transphobic, but I don't want to hear it anymore.
It's everywhere, isn't it?
Well, I do agree with that. The fact is that your sexual orientation is irrelevant. The fact is every person should be treated exactly the same. We don't have symbols for straight people, for example. I have a major problem with all of this. And actually, one of the biggest problems is that I think, whilst it's really important to talk about inclusivity, many of these hospital trusts have just gone too far. Perhaps I could ask you another question. Why are we paying the average midwife $30,000? And trusts are advertising for diversity managers at 70,000. That's simply not right.
No, it's not right. And also, as well, there was a hospital trust when I was working up as a local reporter up in Cumbria, where the execs of that trust and the chiefs got their parking expensed, right? So the hospital parking. But actually, some nurses had to pay for it themselves, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the fact is, why would you want to work in the health service if you have to pay for your parking? It's little things like that actually would be a much better use of money. I think the problem is, talking to many of my friends who are clinicians, doctors, nurses, and so on in the NHS, they just feel incredibly unloved. Yeah. They feel the management is against them. They feel that there is no support. And what we should be doing is actually training more doctors, training more nurses, making sure it does become a vocation once again. And one of the other problems that I have with this is that I think the money would be better spent training, or at least reimbursing, those people from poorer backgrounds who at the moment cannot afford to go to medical school. And they would make great doctors.
I'd look at waiving some student fees for certain elements of the medical community, go into it. They don't need to be saddled with a lifetime of debt. We need them to save lives,
Exactly right. And Reform UK has a policy on this, which is, we believe very passionately, that if you stay in the NHS, whilst you have to fund your student debt, once you're in the health service and you commit for a set period of years, then that money should be refundable to you. So that way we would actually keep people within the NHS. One of the biggest problems is that we're training people at taxpayers' expense, and then they think, well, actually, the system is so dreadful, I'm going to go into private medicine. And that is a terrible waste of our time, resources, and money. And so I'd be really keen to ensure that we have the best and the brightest people from all backgrounds, actually, because if you grow up in poverty, you really do understand what it's like to struggle. And I think that would make you a very, very good clinician.
Yeah, good stuff. Look, just a quick one. Sorry, a bit off topic this, but I've always wanted to ask you this because you come on the show quite regularly. Is that your back garden? Because it's massive.
It might be. I live on a farm.
Lovely stuff. Well, it looks like
Look, no flag, no flag.
No flag, no! No, it looks lovely, even with the bad weather. Thank you very much, Dr David Bull, Deputy Leader of Reform UK.